Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Today is April 8th, 2019, and we are recording episode 29, where we are going to continue our multi-episode discussion of Book 2 of the Stormlight Archive, Words of Radiance. I am Bill, and I am joined, as always, by my Stormblessed co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
How have y'all been?
Itchy, but good.
Itchy.
I'm doing really well because last night I actually got number 1 in a round of Tetris 99.
Oh, I saw that. That's right.
Ooh.
Yeah, I actually did it. So I've officially beaten that game, and we're done.
You are the Tetris Prime.
Tetris Maximus is actually the title it gives you when you beat when you get number 1.
Maximus.
Right?
Oh.
All I know was I messaged my friends who do a bunch of battle royales, but actual shooters. But I do the Tetris one. I messaged them winner chicken dinner.
Nice.
Oh,
now,
I also I bought my first spandex suit. That's a big step.
Okay.
For Kitty Pride.
Okay.
So yeah. Anyway.
I did not know what direction we were going with that.
I had
and
no idea either.
I was just praying it was cosplay.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not going to wear spandex otherwise. No.
Stormfather, please.
I have a blanket that's 5% spandex, and it stretches and it springs, and it's amazing. Anyway, also for those of you who can't see, today we are being visited by Shalami, who Amy has got a magnificent red wig on right now, and it's kind of awesome.
Shout out to Hokey Bentley for being the one who actually came up with that.
That was very good.
I totally ripped it off from our chat room, and I am happy to give Hokey Bentley wins.
Yep.
Now, for those of you who do listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we do want to remind you that it's possible for our listeners to interact with us live via chat as we record each episode at www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. If you do, you too may have the honor of being quoted in an intro, basically having one of us steal a great line of yours from chat. So we do record episodes.
Sorry.
Sometimes. We do record episodes of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, so please join us and take an active part of the discussion. Of course, tonight we are a little bit off schedule because we had to play around with the schedule when all of us were available. Mm-hmm. So if you're listening to the recording, you're probably not noticing any difference because this is going to come out on the exact same schedule, but if we refer to something as last week or in 3 weeks, that's why it probably sounds a bit off. So,
welcome to the world of tomorrow.
I don't even know what that's from. It's
from Futurama.
You've used it like 3 times.
It's when Fry comes out of the freezing tank, and the guy's like, "Welcome to the." They're just like, "You idiot!" Like, just tell him to shut up. Which I actually think, depending upon your perspective, that statement isn't even correct. It's more like, "Welcome to the world of 1 week ago," which doesn't flow at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did with The Way of Kings, just as a reminder, we are going to be splitting this book up into 4 episodes, following the 3 major plot threads plus the interludes and interludes and epigrams. Epigrams, yes.
EpiPens.
No. That's a whole other discussion. There's probably like dozens of other podcasts about that. Anyway, last week we talked about Shallan Devar. We talked about Pattern. We talked about all of her great story. This week we're talking about Kaladin Stormblessed and Syl, Bridge 4, Moash, Kaladin's journey to the Third Oath. And next episode, we will be focusing more on the Kholins, Dalinar, Adolin, Navani, Elokar, Renarin, and the major conflict that's going on with Sadeas and the war camps and the war against Parshendi itself. Mm-hmm. So, this time, we're talking about Kaladin. So,
all of the angst.
Give us sort of a walk us into it. Where did we last leave young Stormblessed?
As of
the end
book,
of
right?
Way of Kings.
So he finally gets out from under Sadeas's control, and the books blend. I have this problem. The story just blends and flows, so I always have a hard time cutting off exactly where things end,
right,
and begin. But then they're under Dalinar's army, and so this one basically starts with him feeling like an actual soldier again.
Yeah. So basically, Kaladin is really trying to get past some of his angst.
Hang-ups and angst, yeah.
And Dalinar has kind of given him a reason to start getting past, because Dalinar has made a huge sacrifice by buying all of the bridgemen with his shard blade, which shard blades are worth kingdoms.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty cool. Well, the thing I really like about that is he makes them his honor guard, and the Kholin house guard. And it's interesting for two reasons. One, he does it because they're the only people he can trust that won't sell out to Sadeas for very obvious reasons.
Yeah, there is no love for Sadeas.
But the other reason it's interesting is because he's short people, and he just bought all the bridgemen. And Kaladin...
He did give him an option to not be soldiers if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But they all chose to stay.
That's one of Kaladin's little angst moments where he's looking back. He's just like, I could have made them surgeons. Like, I could have easily trained them just as well as surgeons as I am a soldier. And he's like, but I steered them right back into danger. And it's, I don't know. I think it's interesting how Kaladin realizes, why do I keep doing this?
I say I don't like it, but I keep doing it over and over again.
Just when I got out.
Yeah.
Back in.
But yeah, it's just one of those things. He recognizes this is something I'm good at. Just it comes to him, and
he does make it so that they don't have to fight the Parshendi. They're honor guard instead, so they're not in battle danger. If that, I feel like there's a better word for it, but they're still in danger, but they're not right in the conflict anymore.
Well, now part of that is just because they haven't been trained, and so he has them trained in a more controlled environment.
Well, the other thing that's interesting is just how weird their spot is in the social pecking order.
Right.
Yeah.
Where Kaladin's given a captain's knots, and so he outranks a lot of Light Eyes in the military, but not socially. And even Kaladin, there's several times where Kaladin's like, okay, so I don't know how to address this person.
Do I go by eyes, or do I go by rank, or how do I do it?
It's sort of like in Oathbringer when, like at the end when Dalinar's asking Navani, just like, so how do I write I? Because it's gendered female in everything.
But I'm not female, so how do I make that work? Yeah.
And it's just, that's the problem with their odd caste system that they have, that there are some weird situations where things kind of cut both ways and no one knows how to properly respond to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. It doesn't help that he has the huge paranoia that the Light Eyes will eventually betray him and even somehow take his bond with Syl away, which is just like, come on, they don't know anything about hemalurgy.
You know, I hadn't really thought about this, but he has that inevitable expectation of them inevitably taking it away, sort of like Pattern's feeling was inevitably that Shallan will kill him. But it's just I'm going to go along with it and be part of it until it gets to that point, but I will inevitably be betrayed and destroyed. Yeah. I didn't pick up on that parallel until just now.
I hadn't heard that either. But that's part of Kaladin's issue as well. Like the First Oath, life before death, Kaladin always struggles with that. He's very morose. And strength before weakness, he's pretty good at. He doesn't like to be weak, but
and that's what pushes him through everything. That's how he survives.
Yeah, but journey before destination is also a struggle for him because he's so fatalistic. He's always thinking about the end, and for a Radiant, it's not about the end; it's about the journey. And he just has a really hard time with that.
Yeah.
But yeah. It's, I don't know. It's interesting because this book gets way more into the nature of his oaths than the previous one.
Right.
Well, I think a lot of that is because he almost breaks them. So
Well, he does break them.
Yeah, I guess he does, yeah.
Syl died.
Almost. Did she fully die or just mostly die?
She fully died. Now,
like later on, she calls him to task about the time when he killed her. So,
okay,
no,
I couldn't remember the exact words.
A Radiant can break their oath, but they can fix it later. That's the reason they're all stuck in shard blades now. All the other Spren is because they broke the oath, and the ones who broke it are gone.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
and so
so they can't go back to being like Syl.
Yeah, because they're dead eyes now in the terms of the Spren.
Okay,
that's right.
We're not going into Oathbringer yet. So
sorry, spoilers everywhere. Spoilers. It flows too much.
But no, it's very interesting with Kaladin struggling with what it means to protect someone, while also struggling to deal with the full weight of what he actually swore.
Right.
And so he has the problem of where Elhokar, especially at this moment, is a completely incompetent individual. Even if he's very sincere, he's completely incompetent. He gets people killed because of his incompetence.
Yeah.
Right.
And so Kaladin is like, well, no, this is good. It's good that we, get Dalinar on top. That's a good thing. He goes along with Moash's plan. But he had sworn an oath to protect him.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
it's just,
actively joins the plot to kill him. Go ahead.
Yeah. I do like the comparison that he makes where he realizes that Elhokar is
Dalinar's Tien.
Is Dalinar's Tien, exactly. Because Tien was incompetent in the military, and they sacrificed him because it furthered their goal.
You got to use the bodies you got, and if you need to make him what they are distracted by, then that's what you do. As horrible as that is.
But it was just a really, really cool comparison because suddenly he was able to relate. Suddenly he realized, oh. And just he makes that connection, and it's just it changes
for him.
Everything because suddenly he realizes this is the double standard that I've been holding.
Yeah. Here's my hypocrisy.
So I guess we're jumping around a bit. I also found it very interesting his training with Stormlight and training with the Bridgemen, how they still go back into the chasms.
Yes.
And it feels like home to them, kind of, and it even gets the newer the Bridgemen who weren't in Bridge 4, the ones they pull out and kind of train them to be, it's not captains, but it's whatever rank that is, to be over their other bridges.
Lieutenants.
The other lieutenants, okay. But even they start to feel comfortable there after a little bit too, just because of Bridges 4's experience and presence there.
Well, he's said that the chasms belong to Bridge 4.
Yeah.
He claims them and says this is our place. This is where we train. Of course, then they notice that there's a chasm fiend wandering around, and it's just like, oh, he's claimed this,
That's his spot over there. We'll just let him have that one.
But I do love the fact, I love Sigil. I absolutely love Sigil because he's like, okay, something cool. How do we quantify this?
I need to measure it and document.
And they have trouble quantifying it because there's so many potential variables. And finally they're like, okay, well, maybe we can do qualitative stuff. And Sigil just sort of grits his teeth. He's like, fine, we'll do qualitative study, not quantitative study.
I relate to this man.
I'm just like, this might be the Bridge 4 member that is Jordan.
If it weren't for the fact that he is all about like rules and bureaucracy, I would completely relate to him. Mm-hmm. But I tend to avoid actually taking care of government paperwork, so Asia
It's
side
like
not.
you're basically halfway between Sigzil and the Lopen.
That sounds about right.
It's a weird mix, but yeah, I can see that.
Okay, much
Sigzil
like
and
for
Lopen's
Amy,
love
the
child.
books are all going different directions. Was his his training fight against Lopen, Rock, and Teft, was that in this one or the previous one?
It was in this one.
Okay. So
Yeah,
his
'cause
training,
they were
so his
testing it
training
out.
with them is awesome. If for one reason or another is because the fact that he's like, all right, we have 3 of them. One of them only has 1 arm, but the other one's Rock, so that about balances out. And
I love Rock.
That makes up for it.
so I love he sticks Lopen to the wall again after doing it at first for just qualitative research purposes. And then like he's like, now where did Rock? And then he's like, Rock swung a tree at him. Sorry, it was a log at him. And
Yes.
it's just like a full log. Just,
It's not the size you're expecting at all.
Well, and it's one of the times he sees Rock actually, quote, fighting. And he's just like, you are wasted by the cook fire. And speaking of sticking Lopen to the wall, I love at the very end when Lopen starts breathing in Stormlight and he's just like, hey, come here. I got to stick you to the wall.
He's like, I can do this now. I gotta do it.
But I love it as he's stuck to the wall. Like he's just like, hey, and it's like, I want you to understand that you stuck me to the wall again, and it's I don't know where my other arm is, but I want you to understand that it is making a very rude gesture at you right now.
Which again is one of the indications that Lopen does not see himself as being a one-armed man.
Yeah.
He sees himself as being fully capable. It's just that nobody else can see what he's doing with the other hand.
Mm-hmm. It's a temporary setback.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so like I just love that training session just because it shows Kaladin trying to learn, because he talks about how he probably would be doing better if he wasn't messing around with Stormlight. If he was just using a spear because he's used to that, but he needs to get used to it.
Right. It's one of those, it'd be easier now, but if you've trained with everything, then it will be better later.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Kaladin training, there is one scene where he and Bridge 4 start training on horseback.
Yes.
It is absolutely delightful.
I love it so much. Have you guys, I can't remember, I've probably asked you this before. Have you guys ridden horses?
No.
Oh, yes. Several times.
Okay. So I totally have flashbacks to doing horseback riding lessons when they were talking about it and having grumpy horses that are like, I'd much rather eat the grass and you're not going to make me do what you want because I'm 1,000 pounds and you're not.
My favorite part about it is that the 2 people who don't trust the horses are Kaladin and Shallan for very much similar reasons. They're just like, it knows too much.
It's a great relationship building moment between Kaladin and Adolin, because at this point they hate each other.
Oh, yeah.
They absolutely, like, both of them think the other is insufferable, and they're both right. But when Adolin, he's poking fun at Kaladin, and he says, you should go ride that one over there.
Go ride the one that's going to eat you over there.
Go ride the big one that's staring at you and has a death glare in his eyes.
Oh, yeah. That's an angry horse.
I love how stupid the idea to stick yourself to a saddle is.
Well, and the thing is, Kaladin looks over and he knows exactly what's going on. He knows that he's being baited. He knows that he's not supposed to ride the horse. And then he just stops and he's like, I'm going to do it anyway.
Because, I mean, he's 19 or is he 20?
Ish. Yeah.
So, I mean, either way,
that was weird.
guys are going to do that. They're at that age. They're going to go, I'm going to do it anyway, even if it's not the smartest
and
thing.
Kaladin pointed out correctly, I doubt if we get in a dangerous situation that I'm going to have the luxury of riding one that's slow. I need to
ride a more aggressive, yeah.
But I can't imagine.
A more competent horse.
Like, he probably needed a lot more Stormlight than he would have thought to, like, heal whatever whiplash he did to his neck.
Oh, yeah.
By sticking himself directly to the saddle. Something that, you're supposed to, like, be going with it, not...
Yeah,
I'm now one with the saddle.
Woo! Just, like, reminds me of those blow-up things that just swing around from the top.
Wacky inflatable arm, Kaladin.
Yes. Terrible. Terrible.
Oh, man.
The other thing I found funny just about the horse trading is the fact that, like, Moash sees it, he's like, horse training, you say?
I'll do anything the Light Eyes do, it seems like.
I just love he's like, oh, storming Light Eyes. Hey, look at this cool Light Eyes thing. It's just like, you are such a hypocrite.
Well, it's basically, there's this Light Eyes thing. He says, I'm a Dark Eyes, and I'm going to do the Light Eyes thing to stick it to them.
And then, of course, he also does point out the advantage on the battlefield, too. So, I mean, there is a logical reason, too.
But that said, there is a lot of hypocrisy in Moash. Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying there wasn't. There's definitely hypocrisy.
And that's the thing that I always found interesting whenever Moash and Kaladin would have their... okay, first of all, I think the friendship between Moash and Kaladin is actually maybe one of Brandon's weaker pieces of writing.
I agree.
It never made sense to me. It didn't really... Like, it's more informed.
I understood the origin of it, but it didn't play off quite right. Because there were times where he talks about, Moash is great because he doesn't worship me. And I'm just thinking, neither does Rock. Rock is a much better friend than Moash has ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the thing. It just doesn't flow.
I agree. It's one
matches.
of the weaker parts of the book. It does feel a bit more informed than natural.
It almost feels like they just, like, commiserate about being angry. Like, they're angry buddies. Mm-hmm. They're just like, let's be angry together. Yeah, let's be angry. And they just...
Moash is the shoulder devil, who's...
Yeah.
And Kaladin's just like, well, no, we should, Syl's the shoulder angel and Moash is the shoulder devil. And Syl says, no, Kaladin. And Moash says, no, look what I can do. And Kaladin looks over and says, no, he's got a point.
I guess the thing that bugs me about it is Kaladin in their discussions always points out to Moash, you're bringing up these points, you don't even believe them. Mm-hmm. Like, this is just revenge for you. Mm-hmm. And then Moash admits to it, and then Kaladin goes along with it anyway. And I'm just sort of like, I don't know. Just, they're, like, I can see perfectly good reasons for it. It's just, it doesn't flow that well to me. Mm-hmm. Which is it's a shame because it's very important to, him fully breaking his oath.
Right.
Yeah.
It just... Knowing those conversations, I cannot understand what on Roshar possessed him to give Moash the shard plate.
I understand that.
I can see it going to the most competent fighter, and Moash is Moash, right?
I don't know. Maybe it's just because he knows that, oh yeah, here's the guy that wants to kill the king.
Of course, he also does come in a few times saying, hey, Moash, you're a Light Eyes now. Hey, Moash, you're a Light Eyes now. And maybe he's just like, now that he has something in common with them, maybe...
Then again, I guess at that point, that's when he said, I'm in. So
yeah, maybe
it's him enabling it. But it doesn't come across as him enabling it. It comes across as, Moash. Give him the cool stuff.
Yeah.
To which, of course, the last time he gave somebody shard plate and blade, they got murdered. So maybe he was trying to head it off the plot early. No.
Okay, this was one area I did think Brandon may have missed a slight moment of could have been really cool symbolism. So he gets the plate after he fights alongside Adolin in the dueling arena. Which is an amazing scene because Kaladin has to be Kaladin has to fight well, but not too well that everyone knows that he has Stormlight. You don't fight casually. And he goes it, and like Adolin has not just a moment of, oh crap, I screwed up. It's also a moment of realizing he has no friends because Yakimov is one of the ones who's in that fight trying to get shards. And the suit that he gives Kaladin, I wish it would have been Yakimov's suit. Right. So that as a symbol of Adolin knows who his friends are. I know that would have immediately, been countered by the fact it went to Moash. I just think it would have been a cool little
extra
nod.
Hint there, yeah.
Right.
But I just that duel is awesome for so many different reasons.
Oh man.
But it shows how amazing Adolin is. We'll have to get more with that with the Kalin stuff.
Next one, yeah.
But
before we talk about the duel, actually, I'd like to talk about the training to fight shard blades.
Oh yeah.
Just because that in and of itself was a freaking amazing sequence. Because first off, okay, Cosmere spoilers. We ready?
Everyone knows.
Yes, everybody knows this, but just in case. 3, 2, 1. Do we know everybody? Does everybody know who Zale is?
Yeah, Zael's Vasher.
Zale is Vasher. And there are so many little nods to it that I just didn't pick up when I was watching.
I picked up so many more with the color references he's always making, and they're always giving him looks like, what phrase is that? And I'm like, oh, it's a color thing. It's a color thing again and again and again.
The other thing that I noticed was the game that he's playing with the pebbles. And he keeps telling Kaladin, don't touch my rocks. That's the same game that Lightsong is playing.
Yeah. That doesn't have rules you understand.
Well, to the point where Lightsong didn't even know what he was doing.
He's like, I'm just winning it, and I have no idea how.
Reverso sphere. Bold.
Sure.
But yeah, like I love some of the lines that Zale drops. Like, you're green from the ground. Your
ears are red.
Your ears are red.
Black.
Something about like blue walls. I can't remember what the line was, supposed to know that.
Well, I just love how he keeps like stupid language.
It's like, oh, you can't say anything right in this language.
Which is interesting because, well, I don't, it's interesting. I don't know. We don't know exactly how Zale is speaking Alethi or whatever language. Is it through connection or has he actually learned? I'm looking forward to finding that out. So. But yeah, it's such a great scene. And you see, that's one of the first moments where you see Renarin just throwing himself into into everything. To the point where Zale says, okay, go up, jump off on your head. And Renarin, without blinking, is just like, okay.
Does it.
And just goes. And, we'll talk more about Renarin when we talk about the Kolins, but he does have a major part in this story as well because he does join Bridge 4.
Yeah.
Which added another layer of complexity to what is Bridge 4 for Kaladin.
But once again, he starts to fit in. Yeah. It really says a lot about what Bridge 4 is. I mean, to the point where, originally Bridge 4 was just a group of guys and Kaladin forged them into a unit.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they're given this guy with one arm. And they adopt him in. And then suddenly they're given a parchment.
Yep.
And he's brought in as well.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he's welcomed in to the point where
they
win his loyalty.
Sorry, question. Do we know why he was sent to the bridge cruise?
He was just...
We know he's a spy. Does Sadius know that?
No. I think Sadius just picked a parchment. Or had somebody pick one.
Parchment are too valuable, though. Doesn't that seem a bit odd?
That is an interesting...
Maybe he was off in his behavior.
Oh, boy.
That's my only guess, is maybe he didn't act enough like a normal parchment, and so they're like, well, that one's weird. I don't want to work with that one. And so they did that with him. He was less productive or something. But
yeah, it's just...
That's my guess.
That is an interesting coincidence.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's just sort of... it is weird, and it does. That's another thing that tests Kaladin is when he's like, "Am I Bridge Force slave?" And Kaladin's like, "No," and it's like,
oh,
so
you don't get a weapon.
Why don't I get a spear? That
is a good question.
It's just,
but to Kaladin's credit, he takes that question to heart, takes it to Dalinar, and gets permission to arm him.
yep.
Yeah.
And vouches for him.
And he apologizes for not doing it earlier, I think, too.
And I think that made a big impression.
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, when he hits, like, talk about, like, armor piercing question. Just like, oh, that scene is just so tense.
Right there, yeah.
But it plays out just right. I feel like that was just very, very well.
Very well done. But I don't know. And then you have the fact that Kaladin does, alongside Dalinar and Adolin, like the whole thing that gets him going with Xyle, they fight the assassin together.
Right.
Yeah, and poor Adolin is sitting here going, I'm less effective than the guy with the spear. And I'm in shard
that's also
plate
when,
with a
that's
shard.
when that's also when Adolin starts to suspect, because
He's
Adolin
like,
has
you did something weird, like, because he sees his hand, or is it his arm? I think it's his arm.
because he saw him get cut.
He sees his hand get,
And he's like, but
It's
you're
one of
using
those-
it now, so that's not right.
Because it's one of the thing that the Adolin doesn't really hate Kaladin. He just doesn't trust him because he showed up to the tower, took on a bunch of parshmen, and Adolin's just like, that's something's not right with this guy.
Hokey Bentley makes a good point. His sleeve is missing, but his arm is fine.
Yeah, which Kaladin did to make it less obvious, but it doesn't totally work.
Well, no, the sleeve gets cut through with the
Well, yeah,
shard
so
blade.
but it doesn't make Adolin less suspicious. Because the sleeve is still affected, even if it's ripped off versus only has a slice or whatever.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that I just know the entire time Adolin's just sitting here. He's like, I don't know, who's the teacher in the Fairly Odd Parents who swears fairies are real?
Oh gosh.
Adolin's sitting there the entire time. He's just like, something's going on.
Although at the same time, he also wonders. He's just like, okay, because he just went through a very, very adrenaline-inducing event, and so it's like maybe my brain's just playing tricks on me. I didn't see what I thought I saw, but yeah, it's just
the other thing.
And then of course, Dalinar pulls the final clap.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Kaladin's first thought is, "Teach me."
Can I do that? And so he was like, no, that's a dumb move. Don't do that. Mostly it gets you killed.
Yeah, it's a showy move. It's a show-off move that isn't gonna actually work.
What's funny is that's one of two showy moves that aren't supposed to work that Xyle says that do, because we also see Adolin practicing throwing his sword, which why would you throw a shard blade? And then in Oathbringer, he ends up using it because he actually says, we've practiced this, and I'm like, he has practiced.
You see him practicing it, in Words of Radiance. You do
foreshadowing a book early because Brandon likes to do that.
I don't know. It's just one of those great things. That's when they get to the duel and Kaladin does the clap, which then leads to the big, scream.
The big moment, yeah.
And it's just one of those things where he's doing things. You're just like, this is amazing.
And the fascinating thing about that part is that when he does the clap, he hears the screams, but so does his opponent.
Which says something, but I don't know what.
Well, and he says, "I didn't kill you," and it gives you sort of a clue of, okay, he's hearing screams that he killed someone, and it probably is tied to this. And so it's one of the strongest clues as to the nature of shard blades.
Yeah,
but yeah,
there's so much action happening in that scene. It's easy to miss it too because I didn't totally connect it. I was too busy trying to get to the next part.
The fact that Shallan helps because she sends Pattern.
Right.
To go distract, and then Syl notices, what is that?
It's like, I gotta go watch that thing.
She just goes off, and Kaladin just sort of like, really? Now?
Now,
Like,
I kind of need you right now.
It's the weirdest duel ever. Because first off, duel literally means 2.
Yep.
And it starts off with 5 people and ends up with 7.
Yeah.
Plus a couple of Spren.
Well, and then the other part that's interesting, I just love the line, is Adolin literally gives everything he has that entire fight where his last thing is to grab Yakimov in a grip, and then his Stormlight runs out and it's just like, well, we're going nowhere now.
You ain't going anywhere. I'm just going to hold you down.
Yeah, just pulls a bone saw. Looks like you're going nowhere.
Adolin is ready.
And then just Kaladin comes in with the knife and just puts it between the plates. And he's just like, and he just, immediately he's like, are you gonna yield, or do I kill my second shard bearer? Because, well, and then the fact that because look, Kaladin and Shallan and Yesna, they all share a flair for the dramatic. Mm-hmm. And Kaladin likes to think he's not a drama queen, but he totally is. Oh, gosh. And like the fact that as everything's falling apart and Dalinar's just, begging for someone to, fight for his sons, and Kaladin, he's just like, honor's dead, but I'll see what I can do. Yeah.
But I'll go do what I can.
Just like, oh my goodness, could we chew on a little more scenery? How long have you been waiting to say that line, dude? You don't come up with that off the top. He's been planning that.
Well, and again, this is where Dalinar sort of gets his peek into Amaram's true character. Because he's like, who will protect my sons? And Amaram's just sort of
hemming and hawing in the background. I can't do that. And later on, he gives an excuse later, like, "Oh, well, I couldn't favor anybody there," and it's like,
I am,
really?
I'm
a neutral party.
Well, it's not just a neutral party. He's technically, his liege lord is Sadeas. Mm-hmm. But, and then of course this Bridgman says, "Okay, I've got a cloth uniform and a spear. I'll do what I can."
Let's do this.
The other thing, so I love that Kaladin does do what Syl says. He tells Dalinar, and then Dalinar's just like, I have like 23 witnesses. What do you want me to do, dude? Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's a big deal to insult him because of the rank difference there.
Mm-hmm. That said, it's interesting to hear Elokar's recognition that at the end of it, that it wasn't Kaladin who ruined everything. It was Elokar. Because Elokar could have easily just said, oh, whatever.
But like, we'll deal with you later. Sadeas, you're dealing with the situation right here. Do it now.
Yeah, instead he was just a little punk.
Yeah.
But that describes him books 1 through 2 pretty well.
Yeah. I did like Amaram's comeuppance right before they left to go during the weeping. To go do the final assault.
Wonderful.
That was such a nice comeuppance because Kaladin's sitting there going, "Oh no, I'm gonna have to apologize," and he starts to talk, and Dalinar's like, "No, this isn't for you," and like looks at Amaram's like, "You need to apologize and fess up for what you did."
I think an apology is in order. Then, not you, Brit. not you, Captain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 'cause there was no way he was going to apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Amaram totally just like storms off and takes off the cape, and it's just like, oh, you just lost it right there.
Right.
But okay. I'm sure he won't be an issue in the future.
Oh, not at all.
Now,
I'm sure he's learned his lesson.
Okay, now immediately following the duel, because we were at the duel. Immediately following the duel, of course, Kaladin is thrown into prison, and my favorite character shows up, and it's wonderful and makes me happy because Hoid is so very, very Hoid.
Yes. Hoid.
And I also find it interesting. Hoid has a habit of talking to people through the bars of a cage.
I think doesn't he say that he likes to do it because they can't run away?
They're a captive audience.
They're a captive audience. Yeah.
But like you remember before in what was it, the deleted scene for The Emperor's Soul? It starts off with him having a chat with Shai. And Brandon
He does the same thing to Kelsier in Secret History. Kelsier's in a prison.
Exactly. And Brandon has said that scene that happened, even though it's no longer in the story, it did happen. And it's just, so he comes and he talks to people. I mean, even technically you could say Shallan when he first approaches her in her flashback. She's a prisoner in her father's house. Mm-hmm. And so, but he comes and he tells Kaladin to tell the story.
Mm-hmm. He plays the music and tells him to talk and tell the story.
It was such a very cool touch, I felt.
Mm-hmm.
So, on the subject of Hoid and his stories, because he seems to have at this point a story per book that we're going through. And I have a feeling, because a lot of people have noticed that. It's like, okay, well, this could be, foreshadowing, describing this, because, not to go too far ahead, obviously, Oathbringer, that story, we understand its meaning as far as, what it means for the origins of humans and stuff. But this one, we haven't quite seen, what this story is, obviously, quite yet. I have a feeling that Brandon has come up with these stories, and these stories are going to prove to have 2 or 3 layers to them. Well,
the other thing, with the story of Fleet, that's very clearly pulled from the story of Marathon from I believe it's Greek mythology.
Yeah.
I don't think it's mythology. I think it actually happened.
It actually happened with 25. He ran 25 miles.
Greek history.
And then died.
But, and so, it's clearly a play on that.
I just want to know that, but when I die, that when I do a Jordan, that I hope it's something cool and not something stupid.
Yeah, well.
But yeah, it's a definite illusion. You're right.
But the storytelling aspect of it is just so cool because once again, he's using a very unusual storytelling method. This time he's got the it's like a stringed instrument, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's something.
And he's telling the story, and he starts playing it percussively at certain points, and and then Kaladin, being contrary because Kaladin enjoys being contrary, ends the story with, and he died. The end. He didn't finish, and Hoid just stops. He's like, and there it goes, and he. But then he makes Kaladin explain, and it's just very, very cool storytelling. This is one of my favorite types of storytelling, is the old Bard, Gleeman type of storytelling. And Brandon has just nailed it with Hoid.
The what?
Yeah.
Bard, Gleeman.
What's a Gleeman?
It's another word for a bard, a traveling performer.
Isn't it like Glee? Gleeman?
Yeah,
right?
Glee. Glee. Man.
Yeah.
I never watched that show.
No, that's...
it's totally different. That's musical.
Darn you for mentioning that show.
You're the one who brought up Glee, not me.
Yes, Hokey Bentley mentions Tom Marilyn is a Gleeman. He's in the Wheel of Time. But that is not... I realized that Gleeman is actually not a Wheel of Time term. It existed outside of that. Anyway.
Because they bring glee.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So.
But it's almost the Socratic storytelling.
Yeah. Well, because again, Hoid makes Kaladin tell it. And because Kaladin is the one who told it, suddenly he internalizes it a bit more afterwards. Because he's like, you told the story, not me. You tell me what it means.
Yeah.
But like I have a feeling that this story's meant to have 2 or 3 layers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sure.
Well, we've seen the one where he's going to save Elhokar, and he spends every last ounce of energy, fulfilling his oaths.
I think you could also apply that to Syl. Syl died, yet she came back.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that there's also going to be a more literal interpretation of what that story means sometime in the future.
It's very possible.
I mean, it's interesting because he runs along with the storm. Kaladin does that. We see him do it in Oathbringer. He flies along with it. And it goes to Shin. That's Shinovart's where the storm ends. And I don't know. I think there's going to end up being more to that story.
That's very possible.
Within the story.
It's possible.
And we talked about Adolin going into the prison at the same
Yes.
time, right? Last time.
A little bit, yeah. Because he was texting Shallan from prison.
Yeah, that's right. By Span Reed.
And so...
With
I don't know.
a third party.
Yeah, poor third party.
Poor third party.
Actually, third party does sound sort of like an Alethi name.
What?
Third party does sound like an Alethi name.
I don't see it.
Well, of course not. You have to write it.
Okay.
Anyway.
Um,
Kaladin.
and of course, we've talked about the adventure in the chasms, but we were talking more from Shallan's perspective. Now, Kaladin's perspective is completely different. Again, I love the fact that both of them think, how did they survive? I must have done something to save them.
Yeah.
But because clearly they couldn't have survived on their own.
And they're trying so hard to not tell each other that they did it.
It makes perfect sense because they haven't run into anyone else like themselves.
Right.
And they both don't understand their powers well enough to be confident they didn't accidentally do something.
Yeah.
That said, the interesting thing is I've skipped a scene that I do want to talk about, is when Dalinar speaks to Kaladin after he hasn't been able to use Stormlight.
yeah.
Or no, is that after the...
It's after the chasms.
That
when he
is
comes
after
out.
the chasms. Okay, we'll talk about the chasms first. So... But, yeah, so... I'm trying to figure out the best way to approach this from Kaladin's perspective, because we have covered most of it, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that I find the most interesting from Kaladin's perspective is this is him at his darkest because Syl is now dead.
Syl is dead. He has absolutely no Stormlight. He's physically wounded.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just... And because this was the moment that the bond actually broke.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of it, he gets even darker because he's trying to lead them back, and then finds out that he did get turned around in the chasms, which he felt like, I've been down here. I should be able to do this. Mm-hmm. And then
at the beginning of the book, he's talking about how this is his home. He claims it for Bridge 4, and he got lost.
Yeah.
And finally, Shallan, with probably some cheating with the help of Pattern,
Probably.
she's able to map it. And Kaladin fully gives in to his martyr complex when he's like, no, I have to be the bait. You're the valuable one here. You have the information they need. Mm-hmm. And then she trusts him enough to give him the blade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The pattern blade. And of course, there's the moment where he touches the shard blade and doesn't hear the screaming.
So he's like, well, that's weird, but now I have to go kill a chasm fiend.
Well, it's not just that's weird, that's a bad sign.
Oh, that's true, yes, because he's afraid that it means that he knows he's broken the bond.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, it could very well be just because it's a living one, and so there's not going to be anything to scream at him, because nobody's going to scream at him for killing them because it's alive.
Well, but at this point, he doesn't know that Spren are swords, so
exactly,
or the other way around.
So I'm not sure if it's both or if it's just one or the other, but there's no screams.
Yeah. So I remember last time we talked about the triangle, and then I got grilled about, what do you think, Amy? And I came to realize that when I read further in the book, I was like, oh yeah, there is a lot more hinting of the triangle. And I think another big component is Kaladin and Shallan's time in the chasm, because big traumatic moments like that build bonds. And a lot of times between guys and girls, when there's traumatic moments, you feel attracted to each other. And it doesn't seem so much that they're going, oh, they're so hot. It's more like, wow, they have these qualities that I really like. Because, Shallan seems to think that he's really confident and he's gruff, and, and he's a force of nature type thing, is how she thinks about Kaladin a little bit.
And there's that. There's also just the fact that they have a very important, significant thing that they share now. Mm-hmm.
It's a big event that they share.
There is that connection. There's that link.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever been outside of an inside joke, you understand what I'm talking about. Because,
Yeah.
Of course. Okay, so they do get out of the chasm. Of course. Now, was it Shallan who said that it was the storms that killed, or was it Kaladin that said it was the storm that killed the chasm fiend?
No, it was Shallan, because Kaladin, because he has a flair for the dramatic, shows up, drops it, and he's just like, got this for you, by the way.
By the way.
And everyone's just like, what? And she's like, would you stop that?
It was already dead. It was rotted. We pulled it apart.
Because she doesn't want anybody knowing about her abilities.
Her blade, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or her blade,
Meanwhile,
exactly.
Kaladin has the need to build up the legend of Stormblessed, even though he says, and by all accounts, doesn't seem to like having the legend, yet he can't help himself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's the point when Dalinar comes to him, and he looks at me, he says, "Are you what I've been looking for?"
Yeah.
And at this point, Kaladin knows the bond is broken, and his response is, "Maybe once, but not anymore."
Mm-hmm.
And it's just heartbreaking for him, because, like, for Kaladin to actually have to speak those words aloud, it hurts.
But that's what makes it all the better when he finally makes the right decision. He's still recovering, so he still can't move very well. And he finally makes the real... Because he has that conversation with Elhokar. Where Elhokar, is getting drunk because Dalinar's away. But the thing I love about that is Kaladin's like, yes, Dalinar's gone, so he's getting drunk. But even Kaladin's like, yeah, I can understand that.
I would do that too in his position, because now you don't have your uncle breathing down your neck, yeah.
Right.
But he gives him very frank answers that Elhokar didn't want to hear, but Elhokar also, because this is where his character arc starts really going in a more positive direction, where he's like, oh, I asked, so...
I asked, I got an answer, didn't like it, but you were brutally honest with me.
And it just really starts to gnaw at Kaladin, and then he finally realizes, he makes the TN connection to Dalinar, and then he's like, oh crap, I gotta fix this.
I think the chapter ends, or the scene ends with him, like, it says, like, he was Dalinar's TN, and then it cuts, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
no.
Well, because then he's just like, okay, I've got to stop. Who's guarding him right now? Oh, don't worry, we have our best people on it.
And he's like, that would be Moash.
Oh, no. I may have made a miscalculation.
And so he starts hurrying back.
And he has to, because he has to hobble, like, the whole way with the crutch and everything.
Yeah, and
he does...
That's one thing I do like that Brandon did, is he made Kaladin's journey back, both physically and emotionally, just draining. It was not easy for him to come back and fix things. Mm-hmm. And it's just the whole concept of, you break something, it's not going to be easy to put it together. There again, I mentioned last time, there's that whole theme of redemption in this book, and Kaladin takes that road, but again, it's not an easy one. It's a doable one, but holy cow, you've got to give everything you got to make it happen.
Yeah.
I just love, he stands there with just the just in front of two shard bearers, just like, you can't have him. Mm-hmm. And then you hear the Syl voice from, like, far beyond. And I love how she tells the Stormfather off. And it's just like, you have no say in this.
This is my decision.
And Stormfather specifically states, he says, I forbid it. And she says, and then Kaladin says the words, and there's a pause, and then you just hear, the words are accepted.
It's like, fine. I'm not happy about it, but you did it.
That is such a cool scene. And then suddenly Syl is just like spinning around, and I love just the pure joy that Syl has when Kaladin is in full Kaladin mode.
Yeah.
Well, so I love, because first of all, we know at that point Moash has allied himself with Graves, and Graves is working for the diagram. Right. I love that when Kaladin swears the oath, Graves freaks out.
because he recognizes the oath.
Yeah,
And
the fact
they've
that
been talking about it, yeah.
This is what we're supposed to be stopping.
And oh no, he just
so
did that.
He books it, and Moash is just like, I was with him. He's my ride. I gotta
go.
Yep.
And ditches it. And that's when, Kaladin goes and intercedes on the Shattered Plains when the most avalanche of avalanches starts.
Oh, yeah.
I've been talking about this on the Discord. So, the Immigrant song starts playing whenever Vin goes full Mistborn. This scene, to me, is Thunderstruck. It just... you just got Kaladin flying around and embracing the storm and becoming the storm.
Mm-hmm. And there's actual thunder and lightning, so hey, even better.
Exactly.
So that scene it's so cool for a couple reasons. One, it's the reunion of Syl and Kaladin, and then he comes flying in after Dalinar's gone, up bye thanks to Seth, who has fully snapped at this point.
Well, he's already used that exact ability to kill Royan.
Yeah, we saw it. There was a sickening crunch as Adolin's from his perspective,
and his shard blade didn't disappear. Which is a sure sign that he's dead. So.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where... Because Seth's going crazy at this point. And he's finally like, it's done. And then all of a sudden, Dalinar's just floating down slowly. And then it's even in the text. It's not written as such. Kaladin descends in a 3-point stance, hero lands, like he's Iron Man. And... just utters that line, "You sent him to the sky to die, assassin, but the winds and skies are mine. I claim them as I do your life." It's just... Kaladin gets so many hardcore lines in this book. And I just love that entire fight. Because it's like, I read this book, and then Bill one day, I barely completed the book, was playing one of the Prince of Persia games.
Yep, I remember that.
Where the final fight scene, you're fighting on rocks that are being blown by some giant storm, and I'd walk in, and I'm just like, man, the Words of Radiance game is looking great.
Yep, I remember having that exact same thought. The thing that's interesting is you see Seth doing all these things because he is incredibly competent at what he does. And then turning around and Kaladin matching him step for step.
Well, because that's the thing. Seth has never fought someone who could do it like this.
It's also, in a more positive spin on the Bane line, you think the winds are your ally? I was born to them.
Well, and there's something interesting that happens. I read this time, since this was my second time through, that I noticed. When Kaladin's really going through the winds spren are not just following him, they start circling him. We don't know yet what shard plate is. I'm wondering if shard plate isn't lesser spren coalescing in a similar way. I'm wondering if wind spren are shard plate. Because you notice,
that's possible.
Renarin wears shard plate, and he doesn't complain about screaming. I think it's because it might be made of lesser spren that don't really have true consciousness.
Well, and there wasn't a bond between them specifically. So there wasn't a bond that was broken, and so there isn't necessarily
and so the relationship I'm thinking it of as, I think the wind spren are sort of squires to the honor spren in that relationship.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so it's just one of those things that I think that's how it's going to be. I don't know how that relationship works, but I'm looking forward to finding out what it is, obviously. But the other thing that is interesting as they fly, because as much as I love the scene, he makes me love it more because suddenly it's like, oh wait, you probably want me to be a spear, huh? And I could just see Kaladin sort of glancing down his sword. that would be nice.
You can do
Should
that.
we do that?
And then Kaladin's sort of like, oh, okay, so I'm a Green Lantern now, which I am a huge Green Lantern fan. And so I'm just sitting here, I am all on board for spear thrust, shield block, sword thrust, axe swing. It's just going one after another. And as if Seth couldn't possibly be going more insane. No, the Radiance couldn't be coming. Okay, yep, well, I see what's happening here.
The other thing is it demonstrates an even stronger bond between Kaladin and Syl than has previously been, because he doesn't have to say anything. She instinctively knows what he needs. Mm-hmm. Like, to the point where he moves his hands like a spear thrust, and suddenly there's a spear in it.
Yeah.
And like he doesn't even think, okay, turn into a spear, then thrust. It's just, I'm going, and I know that whatever weapon I need is going to be exactly there.
Mm-hmm.
I love how he's also just... He doesn't know why Seth is freaking out, but he can tell he is. Mm-hmm. And so he's just saying whatever he thinks he's supposed to.
Yep. And he just Kaladin has realized and taken responsibility for what he's done. And so he's kind of in that zone as well. He's like, no, you take responsibility.
Well, and then I'm truthless. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. I don't care. Whatever that means. I
don't know what that is. It means nothing to me.
You still did this. Okay, so have y'all read and seen the changes in the two different versions of the ending? Because for those of you who aren't aware, there are two versions of the ending. Brandon rewrote the end of this fight for the ebook version, I believe.
I'll have to double check.
Because apparently he wasn't really happy with Kaladin actively killing Szeth.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make sense to me at all. I hate the rewrite.
Now, I personally am with you. I actually think it does make sense, especially because very shortly before that, part of the oath is, killing if it's required for protection. From Kaladin's perspective, seeing how Szeth has been behaving and how erratic he's become, at this point, there isn't really an alternative.
It's putting down a mad dog at this point.
Yeah. In the rewrite, Brandon makes it so that Kaladin deflects his blow at the very end and instead severs Szeth's hand with the shard blade.
Yeah.
And so he drops the honor blade and immediately falls.
And Szeth, consciously gives up the bond.
Right. And so technically it's the storm that killed Szeth in the rewrite.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of the rewrite.
I'm not sure what possessed Brandon to do it. This is one area I think is just a huge misstep.
I'm wondering if maybe after later books it'll make more sense. He said something about the difference with how shard blades can be affected with healing, and I don't know the full story behind it. But it just I
feel like it might be is he doesn't want to resurrect too many characters either. He doesn't want to have, I killed them, but no, they're not dead.
I feel like...
But I don't know exactly. I'm undecided on that.
Well, except that if you read Edge Dancer, Szeth moving with that sort of after image, clearly something happened to him, not just he almost died.
He says that, and he talks about it in Oathbringer. He says that whatever Nail did to bring him back wasn't done quite properly, and his soul wasn't. I think he actually uses the word stapled to his body quite perfectly, and that's what causes the after image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so hopefully in a few books it'll make more sense, but right now I'm not super happy with the rewrite. So to me, original printing, canon, head canon.
Yeah, it just makes more sense to me. I think the thought that it's Brandon not wanting to resurrect too many characters, I think for just judging by how he wrote things in Secret History's postscript, I think he might be a bit sensitive to that claim at the moment. But it's one of those things. A, we're in fantasy, so I'm willing to allow for resurrections. B, it took a herald to do it, so the only reason I could see him really needing to do it is if for some reason he feels he didn't explain it well enough to where heralds couldn't just do that again in later books, and he feels like it creates a plot hole later.
Yeah,
if it's because it creates a plot hole later, I'll accept it.
Right.
That said, I think as far under Harry Potter logic, where we only are looking at one book instead of the full series for things to be internally consistent, I don't like it. I think it's a better scene when
take
it goes
it down.
I agree with you on
but
that. If we're looking at
Brandon
the scene,
is not Harry Potter logic.
Right.
No.
If we're looking at the scene by itself, it is a better scene with the killing blow, I think. I feel like it works better that way.
But it's just that fight scene is just so good.
Yeah.
Like the only fight scene I like more than it is Kelsier versus the Inquisitor.
You got a soft spot there, though.
I do have a soft spot because that's my first time seeing a Brandon scene like that. I do think that scene is better written from the action circumstance. This one by far has better dialogue with what's going on in scenery. I just think the action in the Kelsier Inquisitor one is slightly better.
Now, after all of this goes down, we do get an interesting scene with Moash as he realizes he has given up everything. And he's wandering off. And it's just a really interesting look because Moash is very, very much a foil for Kelsier, like a literary foil in this book, particularly because everything that Kaladin kind of reversed and eventually did right, Moash didn't. Moash fully gave in to revenge and broke the oath
and everything. Yeah,
and just like Kaladin's oath was to Syl, Moash basically killed any relationship that he had with Kaladin.
Yeah.
And
well, it like they're foils in so many ways. Like both essentially had their lives ruined because of Ellikar's mishandling of things. For Moash, it's his grandparents dying, which that ended up.
Yeah.
Ellikar's mishandling of things and what's his name?
Roshon.
Well, that was the direct result of Roshon going to Hearthstone. And so their family's source of problems are from the exact same source, essentially.
The same situation. It just
flows further downstream for Kaladin.
Right.
And they both have issues with authority. Both are very good militarily. Both command more respect than they should for Dark Eyes. And both have a flair for the dramatic. Both, it's just, they're perfect foils, but the difference is Kaladin
overcomes them.
Yeah,
overcomes the same.
That's how to overcome
issues.
it. And Moash refuses to. He won't let go of his revenge.
All right, we should probably start wrapping up. But before we do, I would like to just take a look at some of the major members of Bridge 4. Just sort of, because each of them has their own little story. Lopin, of course, is the first to show any... he's really the first squire that we see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's because Lopin's actively trying for it. He's... we've had an interesting discussion of Lopin doesn't really have cracks in his soul, it seems. But not all cracks are formed, I think, by pain or anything like that. He's opening himself up. He's actively seeking it. And he's doing it very sincerely.
Yes.
And so I think that's why he is a bit open to that. But the scene with him, the fact that there's where's Ellikar? Where's Ellikar? Don't worry. We put him somewhere that no one will suspect. And then it cuts immediately to Lopin's mother being like, I'm not going to have anyone say that I wasn't feeding the old king. And Ellikar has a horrible hangover, doesn't know what's going on. It's just oh, please, not now, Nana. Well,
and the other thing is when when Lopin shows up with Elhokar and they talk about how there's a Herdasian or one-armed Herdasian saying his name needs to be added to the registry of kings. And Brandon has said, Word of Brandon says, this is actually true because to get Elhokar out, they had to, like, he technically abdicated the throne because the Herdasians would not technically officially lie. They're willing to bend the truth to the point where it's screaming bloody murder. And so what they did is Elhokar, quote, abdicated and made Lopin king.
The thing I love is as she's giving the lecture to Elhokar, like Lopin starts mouthing the words. Apparently it's something he's heard 1,000 times.
He's heard it a few times, yeah.
But just the fact that he's saying, I need to be added to the registry of kings. And in his mind, he was king of Alethkar for a time. And
would hold under no, like, how drunk was he at the moment? Mm-hmm. It doesn't count, but
yeah,
but
it doesn't matter.
It's close enough for Lopin. And if we're talking about cognitive views of oneself, again, Lopin always saw himself as perfectly capable, as having two hands, actually. And now he sees himself as a former king who has abdicated his throne.
Well, I just love as he's sitting there with this, he's like, wait a minute, it's done. And then he looks and he like sees a little, he's just like, yo, get me some spheres. I've got glowing to do.
Well, because suddenly his arm starts growing back and he looks down and his reaction is, oh, yes.
Like, sweet, let's do this.
Everyone else, their reaction is, what is going on? Wait, I don't know if I'm worthy. No question in Lopin's mind what's going on. He knows it, and he knows he is definitely radiant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lopin and Wayne, I feel, would have some fun conversations.
Oh, my goodness.
The three characters who are the most confident in themselves are those two in Nightblood. And...
oh, gosh.
I would love to see them playing cards against one another.
Now I want like just a Three's Company buddy, just sitcom based on those three. You got the Three Stooges. Now oh gosh. Anyway, that would be wonderful.
Right.
This is also the first book where I think we really get the real hints of what Teft is going through. Like they don't, we don't see anything with the Fire Mouse, but we see Teft missing.
Yes.
And I thought there was a line or two that gave a stronger hint than him just missing. But I don't remember what they were.
I didn't realize it before, but we see Fire Moss introduced for the first time in this book. It becomes a bigger thing in the next
Kaladin
book,
refuses it when he's healing up. He refuses to take it.
And Ten uses it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Shallan sees Ten using it.
Mm-hmm.
She was using it.
Yeah. Now, Rock, one thing that I like about Rock in this one is his story about how he saw a god come out of the pools on the Horneater Peaks. Okay, the pool on the Horneater Peaks we know is it cultivations?
Cultivations perpendicularity.
Perpendicularity.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about this white-haired god who cannot harm anyone because... And it's just sort of like, wait a minute. That's Hoid. That's Hoid. Rock saw Hoid. And it's just a fun little... It's just another great little nod to, okay, there's something else going on in the background.
Well, it's just, at this point, so many people in Bridge 4 have interacted with Hoid on some level or another. Because Kaladin clearly has, Sigzil clearly has, Rock clearly has, Renarin has.
Mm-hmm.
All the Colin family, pretty much.
Yeah. It's just Bridge 4...
And Shallan, of course.
Yeah. It's just one of these things where it's just like, man... But it's like, it's one thing he's showing up to royals and important people, but he's also showed up to all these random people. And...
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because, and Brandon has said, it's, I believe, through ferrochemical connection. Yeah. That's how he's able to know where he's supposed to be and go there.
Mm.
And so Hoid's just popping up and plucking strings right where they need to be plucked.
Literally
right
plucking
time.
strings in this story.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, fun times.
When were we going to talk about the drawings in the 4th episode, probably. The drawings that are interspersed.
Oh, the pictures and such?
The pictures, yes.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry,
Okay.
You said drawings, and the next thing that I was about to talk about is
Sorry, not that drawing.
Yeah.
Well, as an
Drawings.
amazing, fortuitous segue.
Hey,
Speaking of
I totally
segues,
planned that.
Speaking of segues, we have a giveaway to announce.
Yay!
Yay! Thanks again to our patrons. We're having these monthly giveaways. And in consideration of today's topic of discussion, this time we are giving away something pretty cool from the goodie bag of Brandon-y goodness. For those who can't see, we have a T-shirt featuring our favorite Stormblessed and Windspren / Honor Spren. Kaladin and Syl. It's a T-shirt. It's almost like a chibi version.
Yeah, it's like sort of chibi
of the art, and it will be.
It's a size large, right?
It is an adult large, so keep that in mind. But we'll announce exactly how to enter shortly after this episode goes live on our social media channels. So follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to make sure that you don't miss out on that.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool shirt.
Yeah, it's a really cool shirt. I kind of love it.
But it's not the coolest thing that's in that bag.
Are you sure, Jordan?
Just rub it in there.
I'm sure. I'm quite sure.
Well, I wonder what that could be. Oh, well. Of course, we're able to do these giveaways thanks to our patrons for pushing us over the threshold goal. Y'all are also the ones who make it possible for us to keep creating episodes. The show, of course, will continue to be free for everybody, but if you want to support us, even if you just got $1 or $2 to drop per episode, feel free to go to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. By becoming a patron, you will get immediate access to our Discord channel, and we've got a great group of people in there having some awesome discussions. You can continue the discussion about the Cosmere and about the show. You'll also get bonus content like the 6-7, which we posted a new one today. It's a collection of 7 pieces of content we find each week that we want to share with you, and you'll also get early access to any bonus content that we produce. I've got an idea for a bonus episode in mind, so hopefully we'll be able to play with that. But beyond that, our patrons are automatically entered into these giveaways. You'll get a free entry. Just to clarify, though, those giveaways are not exclusive to patrons. They're free to enter for anybody. Our patrons just get an automatic entry. And, of course, you will help us to continue to make the show and improve the quality of our episodes. As we get more patrons, we're hoping to eventually start recording episodes every week instead of every other week. And we'll be able to do that thanks to you once we hit that point. Of course, to all of our current and past patrons, we just want to say once again, thank you. We are starting to save up our aluminum foil hat theories and questions from our listeners. If there is a topic or a possible idea that you have that you want us to discuss on the show, please go ahead and reach out to us at cosmerestudies@gmail.com. If you're wondering, what something means, or if maybe there's a character who shows up and you think, ooh, maybe they have more significance, send us these suggestions and we will be excited to talk about that on a later episode. Again, if you want to send that to us, just write to cosmerestudies@gmail.com. Now, outside the show, we've got personal projects. Amy, where can we find you outside of the podcast?
I'm on the internet. It's great.
Wait, what's this internet thing?
It's magic wires and Wi-Fi. Yeah, I know.
It's like this cognitive realm. But
but
I kind of want the episode title to be, I'm on the internet.
You're welcome. Anyway, so I'm on Facebook at Coincidence Cosplay and Props, on Instagram at coincidence_cosplay, and on Twitter at coincidencecosp, because my name is too long.
Just so people know, because my name is too long is not part of her name, because that would make it even longer.
It would make it so long.
But so meta.
Anyway, so my current projects are are Queen Eleanor from Brave. I have not made much progress because I've been busy with lots of things that are not related to cosplay. And then I'm going to try and finish up my Nazgul, and then I will work on the rest of this glorious thing and make myself a pretty dress.
For the audio-only version,
I was stroking my wig that's bright orange. So
wait, that's not your hair? I thought you just had the royal locks and could change at will.
This is way too itchy. If only. I would love to have royal locks so much.
What was that the side effect of having the royal locks?
It's always itchy.
You can have the royal locks, but it will be itchy.
Always itchy.
So itchy. Like, I'm not usually this itchy with wigs, but I don't think I put this on very well because I'm just like, oh my goodness, I gotta itch my head. So, yeah. So that's what I'm doing. Stuff. Yeah.
Very cool. And as for myself, where am I? Oh no, Jordan. Jordan's turn first.
Oh,
Jordan,
I just thought we were going in a different order.
I go last. It flows better that way, clearly.
No, you can find me at twitch.tv/splicestream, where we're doing more Amiibo stuff. It's not quite yet, but Mario Maker 2's coming out. I don't know what, but I want to do stuff with that. That looks like it's going to be fun.
That is going to be fun.
You know, if you think that Mario Maker 2 stuff will be fun as well, you should give me a follow. And at some point in the vague future, we'll do stuff with it. Vague things.
Very cool. And of course, when I'm not here, I've got a bunch of board game reviews over at the Innkeeper's Table at www.innkeeperstable.com. I am actually currently working on a brief first thoughts post about Ignite, which is a game that I had an opportunity to preview at SaltCon. And they're actually currently in the middle of their Kickstarter. I am also still posting about games on social media, so go check those out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Innkeeper's Table. For those of you who can't become patrons just yet, of course, we would love for you to just head over to iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and give us a 5-star review. It helps us out. It brings in new traffic. It helps people to find us. Now, before we sign off for the evening, guys, do y'all have any final thoughts about Kaladin's story and Bridge 4 and all this stuff and Syl?
Seasonal depression sucks.
It really does.
I haven't personally experienced it, but it looks really terrible.
It really does.
This Kaladin's arc, I feel, in this book is maybe the coolest arc Brandon has done for a character in a single book. Just because he is able to use his arc to showcase the mechanics of his magic system at the same time, which I can't think of another arc that quite fuses the character arc and the power arc in the same go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not quite as smoothly, no.
Maybe outside of the Cosmere, but not really.
They mesh so well.
Yeah.
Like a puzzle piece.
Yeah, I've talked about the theme of redemption, but I just love how well Brandon plays that in Kaladin's story. Just because the thing is, with redemption, Kaladin's journey to breaking his oath is not it's a lot more subtle than he expects it, because he doesn't realize when Syl, stops, she starts sort of regressing. You're making bad choices, naughty. And he just thinks, oh, she's being goofy again. What's going on? And it's just, he's gradually stepping further and further and further away from the path that he wants to be on. Until finally he stops and he looks around and he says, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And it's just, it's so gradual. And I think Brandon does a great job with it. And then, of course, to get back, he has to fight through a bunch of stuff, but he's willing to do it. And I just loved it.
He has to slog through all of the...
It's a very earned redemption.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, in addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on twitch.tv/Innkeeper's Table every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, our listeners can find our videos on YouTube or the audio versions of the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and just about anywhere else that you can find podcasts by doing a search for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us and contact us through Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the profile @Cosmere Studies. For our next episode, we are still going to be on Roshar as we continue our discussion of Words of Radiance, moving our focus to Dalinar's plotline as he deals with the aftermath of Sadeas' betrayal and attempts to end the war with the Parshendi. We'd love for you to be a part of that discussion, so join us for the live stream on April 29th, 2019. In the meantime, though, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember, there's always
always
another
another
secret.
secret.